get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!" I want you to get up right now.
If we don't laugh, we'll cry.
Exactly. So welcome to Breakthrough Ideas podcast in the Spotlight. This segment, this entire podcast this time is going to be all about schools, all about JB Pritzker's tyrannical 17 months of tyranny from this man and his most recent mandated masking for all school children, public and private, K through 12. We're going to discuss it. We're going to be talking to parents about this. But I mean, let's get started with what happened. Okay, so in July, there were a lot of discussions in a lot of different school districts in the state of Illinois about what is going to be the masking policy, what is going to be the COVID mitigation procedures coming up for the school year that's just starting in weeks, in 10 days, just days away actually from starting. And many school districts were choosing mask optional. Which is the right decision because
it's a very reasonable decision.
Absolutely, we agree with that. Our own
and
personal
what was
school
so
district
great about it was
that.
You had what we want. You have lots of people on both sides of an issue participating in government. You have robust discussions about all different angles to be considered. You have reviews of local data. You have it was fantastic. And who doesn't want that? Only a tyrant wouldn't want that.
Only a tyrant would want it.
Would want to. And of course, that would be JB Pritzker.
That's right. He is the only single person who is allowed to make any decision for 12.8 million people.
Right.
Nobody else is qualified to make these decisions.
He knows what's best for all of us.
That's right. Exactly. And he knows he's got the pulse on everybody else, and he doesn't. He lives in a mansion. He lives on his ranch.
He hasn't even been to
anywhere.
Talk to anybody.
No.
Anywhere that's affected by any of his decisions. He stands at that podium in the Thompson Center or wherever. Right. And issues edicts. His family's not in the community. They're not impacted by his decisions. They flew to Florida.
That's right.
They don't want to live under this. They want to live under Ron DeSantis.
That's right. So in the height of COVID, he sends his daughter to Florida to participate in activities because he shut down everybody else's activities in this state. Right. He is a tyrant. We've had it.
I am done.
So on Wednesday, he issues a mask mandate that requires all persons over the age of 2 to wear a mask in both private and public schools, K through 12, and in daycares. He says that students and coaches must also wear a mask during indoor activities. He says all visitors, staff, and patients at long-term care facilities must wear masks. That includes such facilities that are privately operated. And then he says effective October 4th, vaccines will be mandated for state employees who work in congregate settings, including veterans' homes, long-term care facilities, correctional facilities, developmental centers, and psychiatric hospitals. Mm-hmm. He puts out this missive. Mm-hmm. Across the entire state, disregards anything that's happening locally, disregards local decisions, all of that. Well, now, this is absolutely ridiculous. No individual should be allowed to make unilateral decisions that impact children and families for this long without approval of the legislature. He has 100%. Negated the legislature's impact on any of these decisions. Right. He alone is the sole arbiter of what should happen to
what's
you.
Right and wrong, and your kids.
And your kids.
He cares more than you do. He knows more than you do. We have a clip, I think a couple clips of his announcement. The first one is a clip of him giving the rationale behind this new mandate.
This upward movement has occurred almost entirely among those who are unvaccinated.
Okay, so he's saying there has been upward movement in the cases of COVID among people who are unvaccinated. Well, at this point, they are making their own choices because first it was we're going to shut down to flatten the curve to make sure that we don't overwhelm our hospital systems. Mm-hmm. We avoided that. Mm-hmm. Then it was wait till there's a vaccine. There's a vaccine. Wait until the vaccine's widely available to everyone. It's available to everyone. Literally, it's free. Anyone can get it. If you can't get a ride to a place, Uber's not even paying me to say this. They will give you a free ride to get the vaccination. Okay, so it's effective, and anyone at this point who doesn't have it doesn't want it, and that's fine. That's their choice. They've done their own risk assessment and have decided they'll take their chances with COVID, or they've
already had
immunity,
COVID.
or they have
That's
natural
right.
immunity, or whatever. But there is no reason to put a mask on a 4-year-old to protect a 45-year-old teacher who doesn't want to get a vaccine.
On top of it, his Phase 5 reopening plan, let's go back to May, where he laid out his Phase 5 reopening plan. He had 5 phases of reopening. And at that point, Phase 5, fully reopened, fully back to normal, was that you had a highly effective, widely available treatment. Treatment. It wasn't even a vaccine. It was a treatment because nobody thought that we could have a vaccine in that amount of time.
Right. Well, we're
Remember?
able to treat
and
it.
the Trump vaccine was not going to be good enough for any of these Democrats. And now we have a vaccine. It's proven to be highly effective.
Yes.
And we also have treatment plans. They've learned so much about COVID. They know how to keep people off of ventilators.
Several different options on vaccines.
Exactly.
One of them, the Pfizer vaccine, ladies, will increase your cup size several times.
I did not know that.
It's true. There have been reports. So,
oh my God.
It's cheaper than a boob job. It's free.
I did not know that.
No.
Oh my God.
I read it somewhere.
Okay, well.
May or may not be true.
You're getting all the information that you could possibly use is coming out of Breakthrough Ideas podcast.
That's right.
Okay, back. Okay,
all right, but we're really mad.
Honestly, but also he's wrong about this data. So he puts out this in a press conference. We're taping this, by the way, on Friday, August 6th. Oh my gosh, it's happy birthday to my brother Paul. It's
happy
his birthday
Paul.
today. Okay, I'll give him a call later. But we're taping this on August 6th. 2 days ago, he has his press conference on August 4th. And I've been watching this data, by the way, ever since there was this threat of us going up to substantial risk. I didn't believe the data back then. And so I've been watching the DuPage County data. We're a suburban-focused podcast. DuPage County is the second largest county in the state of Illinois. It's got a lot of relevance in this entire discussion. And so 2 days ago, believe it or not, the DuPage County cases have started to trend downward. We're on a downward trend. And when you look across all the data, there's been spikes in the COVID positivity cases, and sometimes they've been a 4-week spike. Sometimes they've been a 2-week spike. And we are on the downward trend. By the time we start school just days ahead, we are going to be back to normal. And by the way, one more point before we go on. One more point here. They have 2 different sets of case status. They have probable cases and they have confirmed cases.
Right.
If you looked at confirmed cases in DuPage County on a 7-day rolling average, which is what they base substantial risk on or moderate risk on, or if you look at that, we should be classified as a moderate risk community. Moderate risk. Yep. Because there's only about 443 on a 7-day rolling average of moderate risk. We are qualified for moderate risk if you looked at confirmed cases. They're not doing this. There's no scientific measurements here going on.
Nothing changed.
And then we found out about cases from your sister about that.
Well, no, my sister, who shall remain nameless, works in. I have 2 sisters.
2 sisters. Okay, great.
She works in infectious disease as a sales rep, and she's so she knows about all the stuff she sells. First, she was selling HIV tests and things like that, and she then started. So they got an antibody test, and then they were selling a. It's called a combo COVID flu test, where you do one swipe and it tells you if you have COVID or a strain A or B of a flu. Well, nobody wanted that test, so it hasn't. So here's her text to me this morning. She said, and she said I could read this. We sell a combo COVID and flu test. It hasn't been selling well because last year there was no flu providers. Okay, so this is her writing. So what it was it didn't sell well because doctors were not getting reimbursed for testing for the flu. They got reimbursed for testing for COVID. And since the only real symptomatic difference between COVID and the flu strain that was here last year was loss of taste, they ran everything through a COVID test because it was private insurance companies that weren't reimbursing doctors. It wasn't a government reimbursement, but private insurance is very much subsidized by the government now. after Obamacare. So the CDC came out last week saying that providers should begin to move to the multiplex test like the one that she sells that differentiates between COVID and the flu for the upcoming flu season, and they will begin to pull the EUA approval on many of the commonly used PCR tests that only test for COVID. Why, you ask?
So they're pulling the approval for the widely used PCR test.
Yes.
Why?
Well, why, you ask? The CDC's cover, their excuse, is that they are anticipating a bad flu season. The real reason, according to her and the group that she works for, and this is what they want to bring forward, is that the commonly used PCR tests are not able to differentiate between the flu and COVID, meaning they've been diagnosing several strains of the flu as COVID all along. The claim has not been substantiated yet. It probably won't be because it works against the FDA and CDC rhetoric, but if it does come out, I will let you know.
Well, I mean, she's not the first to report that the PCR test is inadequate and they cannot differentiate between the flu. But now you're hearing straight from somebody who works in this field.
In infectious disease.
And her own company is saying
that's happening.
Yes.
And incidentally, her company based out of New York, hotbed of COVID, does not require the vaccine and does not require that any of their employees wear masks. They have no mask mandate.
And you would think an infectious disease testing company would understand the exact situation with COVID.
They have a pretty good understanding.
Yeah, they do. And so they must think that masks are BS and COVID is not a big risk.
They do not require them for their employees.
Interesting. Well, anyway, so what else do we have in this segment? Do we have another clip that we're going to play?
Yes.
Kind of lost track of what we're doing.
Yep. No, we have. The next clip is him announcing that he will.
All right, let's hear his announcement.
Too few school districts have chosen to follow the federal Centers for Disease Control prescriptions.
Too many people
for keeping
thinking for themselves.
You cannot
safe.
think for yourself.
Though
JB will think for you.
The districts in Edwardsville and Champaign, in Peoria and Springfield, in Elgin, in Chicago, and others for already doing the right thing for their students.
In the country, probably.
Given the CDC's strong recommendation, I had hoped that a state mask requirement in schools wouldn't be necessary, but it is. The Delta variant is highly transmissible, more so than any other previous forms of this virus. Because of the lower rates of vaccination among teens aged 12 to 17, because the vaccine has not yet been approved for children under 12, because there are many people who are reluctant across some of the districts to adopt the CDC's guidance, effective immediately, all P12 schools and daycares in Illinois must follow the CDC guidance of universal masking inside, regardless of vaccine status. My goal has always been to safely bring all kids back into the classroom at the start of the school year and, crucially, to keep them there. Without these measures, we would likely see many more outbreaks than in the latter half of the last school year. Preventing outbreaks from the start also prevents kids from having to stay home because they're sick or in quarantine. This requirement extends to P12 sports. Face coverings will be required for all indoor recreation, whereas outdoor, where transmission risks and rates are lower, athletes and coaches will not be required to mask.
So, yeah, I know we're going to talk to a few parents. Coming up. But I have to tell you, like, telling my kids that this, because I have a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old, and they're two different kids, but they were both really upset to know that they were going to have to wear masks again to go back to school. Of course, it's uncomfortable, it's awful, it's for a long time. And so we're having a discussion about what do we do, because I don't want them to be stuck in this position. I don't want them to feel like this is normal. And my daughter's kind of like, well, I'll homeschool. We can move. I'm fine. Just find a good dance studio. You know, she's easy, but my son's got like really good buddies. And he's like, well, you know, he wants to be in school. He got kind of screwed out of the end of 8th grade, which is the most fun part of being in school from kindergarten on up. You know, it's all the fun stuff happens. Got screwed out of all of that. Last year was, and my daughter's at the private school, so I know they're not, it's going to be more consistent.
But this
for
affects
her.
private schools, too.
It does, but like they didn't go, we're going to go hybrid, then go to full remote, then go hybrid again, then go to 4 days, then go full remote again. It was completely inconsistent. He had, I think, just a terrible year. So I don't trust really the public schools with my son again. And so he said, well, you know, I love being in school. Like, he's 16 years old. Like, what 16-year-old says this? I miss my friends. I want to be there. He hated being out and doing remote learning. And I said, well, let's think about if we were, you know, he said, just tell me we won't move away from my friends. And I said, at this point, I cannot promise you that, because he's like, but it's just another year. I'll wear the mask. And I said, it's probably not just another year, because unless somebody really stands up and takes a stand against this, and it's going to be like a lawsuit stance, and they can win it, he's going to keep doing this. He's going to continue this for years and years.
And why would they not do this for the flu season?
And I don't
the flu
want
season
my
is more
kids
dangerous
to
the
think
kids
that
than
this
COVID.
is normal. I'm worried that my kids are never going to really know what freedom is if we continue living in Illinois.
And this is obviously a guy who's never played sports in his life. Just look at him. I am serious, because listen, I'm the mother of my son was a wrestler.
Yeah.
Listen, you're going to make wrestlers wear masks indoors? No, you can't do that. Are you freaking kidding me?
Runners,
you are somebody who has no idea about how this really happens. Yeah, what are you going to do about swimmers? Swimmers are going to swim in a mask? Are you freaking, you're nuts.
None of it.
You're crazy. You have no idea what happens in the real world, Governor Pritzker. No. You have, so just be honest. Are you going to shut them down of activities? Yeah. Is my daughter going to dance in a mask for show choir? Hell no. No, you're not being honest with people with his edict, and that's the problem here.
To anyone who disagrees with him?
Do it. But we're going to invite him to talk to us. You know, come on over to the school district meeting August 18th.
We should try to get him on the podcast.
Absolutely, yeah, we'll do that. We'll ask him. He'll come on our podcast. Will he?
Say your wife grew up in Vermillion, South Dakota.
That's right. We had that discussion.
Yeah.
That's
you
right.
Met him.
Yeah, I met him briefly. That's right.
Yeah.
And his brother-in-law lives in the town that I grew up in.
I really think that he, like...
So do his in-laws.
Just hates people. I mean, I really do. Like, if we don't act exactly like you think we should act and don't go along with everything that you're saying, you're going to tell us how stupid we are, first of all.
Right.
Tell us that you know best and whatever. You make us go through... wear masks and jump through every hoop, and if we don't do it, you shut us down, you'll lock us down. I mean, I really think, like, Governor Pritzker just doesn't even like you. He disdains you.
Well, there you go. Next segment, we're playing a contrasting governor's response, aren't we? The tale of two governors coming up next. Thanks.